it's the tiny tweaks that put people on big stages or that seal the deal on an audition. And I began to see that and finding what that was. And each singer, every performer is different. Finding what it is, what do we need to tweak, adjust, just to fine tune just a tiny bit to get you to that next level.
Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us today. I am your host, David Block, and today I am happy to welcome a distinguished vocal performance coach with more than 20 years of experience, the CEO of Practice, Polish, Perform, and the pioneer of performing arts mindset, a 2-time author and songwriter, Christina Walker. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. I've been so looking forward to this. I love your show. I didn't know before we connected, but I've been watching your episodes and it's just brilliant. And what a great community. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And this actually show marks the beginning of sort of an expansion of my show. Up until now, I've been focusing on the design industry, but I'm opening up to performing arts and musicians and vocalists and all of that as well, performers, actors, and any of that sort of stuff. And so thank you for being my very first performing artist.
You are welcome. I'm honored. I'm going to put that on my resume. I like that.
So the show is basically kind of a behind the scenes tour of your career journey. And what I like to do is I go way back to where you found your inspiration, talk a little bit about your education, and then how you got into the industry. So my first question is, where was it that you first got your inspiration for being let me say that again. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cut that. Okay. So can you share with us when and how you were first kind of inspired and where you got your passion for singing?
Sure. I love to, this really takes me back. I love as adults, to make ourselves stop and go back to our history. There's strong value in that. So, my first influence that I remember musically, as I've kind of digested this question, is sitting next to my dad. He would sit at his brown piano and he would play. And my dad loved to sing. I was blessed to have a great dad, and he loved to sing. He loved to play. He played a lot by ear. And I can remember sitting to the right side of him, and he's over there, singing this beautiful baritone voice and playing, and I'm just over there, just kind of he humored me, and he let me kind of plunk along, so to say. And but Dad, he would play and sing often growing up, and I can remember him doing that, and it was always such a stirring thing to me, and I thought I loved how he expressed, and that was my first musical influence that I can remember is being at home and hearing it in the house, because of the freedom he showed. I think because he would just kind of play along, play by ear and sing. I was encouraged to sit there and play along, and I would just start kind of singing with him or making up stuff that made no sense, and that's really how I cut my teeth on it. And he always he never kind of talked down like, that's wrong, that's bad. Now there's a place for that. Sometimes you just got to say, hey, this is not in tune, or whatever it was. But he just let it go, just let it go. And so that's how I got started.
Great. Okay. And now tied along with that, I'm sure you like a lot of different styles of singing, but I'm curious let me say that again. I'm sure you like a lot of different types of music. I'm curious what influenced you first, though, when you were younger. Was there a certain type of music that you like to listen to or sing along with?
Yes, and it kind of surprises people. Not many people actually ask this question, but as I was going back in my musical history, the songs that stood out to me were from Bon Jovi and Van Halen. and you wouldn't think that I have a brother and a sister. My brother is about 11 months older than me, so we just were like twins. And he would always have those, those rock bands going, and the drums and the grit in the voice, and so I can remember I really liked Bon Jovi and the just kind of the grit and the heart behind that. And I was on a jump rope team when I was in elementary school, and now I can see how that was kind of getting me onto stages and stuff, because they take us around, and we would do the halftime shows and do our little jump rope tricks and stuff. But one of the songs I jumped to all the time was Van Halen Jump, and so I with all those that was a lot of the background, and I found myself really liking the emotion that sometimes those songs, those ballads, especially the hard rock ballads, gave me. And around the 90s, Mariah Carey was hitting the scene. And I remember really being enamored with just the technical aspect of her voice, like just all the turns and everything. And I was really enamored with that. So you take Mariah Carey style music and throw in some of the hard rock grit of the bands, and you got quite an eclectic situation going on. I grew up in Taiwan. Parents moved there for work, and we'd go to cafes a lot as part of the culture. And several of the cafes I would go to had jazz music playing, Natalie Cole, Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, and some of those the jazz songs, something about coffee, conversation, and jazz. I just loved it as a high schooler. And so those three type of influences were strong in my history. And my dad was into like music ministry and things of that nature. So there was a little bit of undercurrent of the traditional hymns, more formal setting, 4-part harmonies. And I came to really appreciate that I had some of that in my music ear as I went into college, because the Van Halen, Bon Jovi thing just wasn't cutting it when I entered into college.
Yeah.
Music. So.
Well, that is actually a fantastic transition to my next question, which is, you went to Carson Newman University, right?
Yeah. I did.
What was the program that you went there for?
Good. My degree is in music education, and the grand plan was in high school. I actually I had always thought I would be a doctor, like a medical missionary, kind of going into the jungles and doing doctor oriented work. And I was a senior in high school, and I was taking a math course that was just really tough for me at that time. And at the same time, I had tried out for the musical at high school and had landed the lead. And it was just a great experience. But I began to figure out that I really liked performing. I thought I just love performing. Well, with that math class, it wasn't going so well. It wasn't so great. And I thought all of a sudden I had got this just this big feeling like, if I can't do this, the medical field is not what I want to do, So I remember going into the counselor's office, our great high school counselors, and saying, Mr. Robinson, I don't know what to do. This was my path, my career. And he said, Christina, what do you love? And at the time I was in the musical. And I said, well, I actually have never been on the stage like this. I really love performing. And he said, I got it. He said, you need to be a teacher. And I thought, no, you just don't, how we teenagers are, you don't get it. That's not, he's like, teachers act all the time. We're always performing, trying to sell what we're teaching. And I just kind of put that in the back of my head. I said, oh, we'll see. I'm going somewhere with all this. So that he helped me discover, he said, okay, what are some fields, medicine and music. And there was a field called music therapy, where you can use songwriting and things like that in the medical, like in cancer, for cancer patients, and using music to bring just emotional healing. And that really intrigued me. So I went to Carson Newman. They had a music education program, and that was a good foundation to go on and get a master's in music therapy, which I never did. But that's what I entered into the program for. At the time, I wasn't proficient in any instrument at that level. I could play and sing for myself. I'd write songs and stuff all the time. But so I entered in, and my primary instrument was voice. We had to choose an instrument, and then secondary was piano. And I started that journey at Carson Newman.
Oh, excellent. So now, in reading a little bit about your background, I did come across a little piece you were talking about where you had a debilitating experience, performance pressure, right? Performance anxiety. We
Yeah.
all deal with that. I do. I mean, probably not. I'm definitely not in the same way,
Yeah.
because you're up against people possibly judging you like to your face, right?
Absolutely.
I go
Yeah.
through similar sorts of pressures with the design world, but
Mhm.
I would actually love to hear you talk about the what you experienced and how you overcame it.
Sure, sure. And that experience is really what drove me to start practice polish perform now. I graduated in 2000, and so I had that experience. I can see it. I can feel it now. Any of y'all who are listening, sometimes those experiences, they just ingrain into our heart and kind of into the fabric of who we are. And that this is one of them. But so I entered into the music program at Carson Newman, and very quickly I began to understand that my background in music was not one. I didn't grow up thinking I'm going to enter into a classical program. And so most of the people who were in there had been studying classical music or classical vocal and things like that. And it was just not something that I had proficiency in at all. And well, so part of the experience as a voice major or as any major, we had to perform on student recitals. Every Friday there was a student recital. It was at 3 o'clock, and it still is. Actually, I was connected a little bit with the school the other day. They are still doing it. I can just feel the people's performance energy, nerves stirring now. But so 3 o'clock we had to be on recital, and a certain amount of times in the semester. So out in the audience is we were required as music majors to attend the recitals as part of our as part of the degree. So it was filled with the music majors who some classical musicians, some amazing performers, and people who really knew classical, filled, as well as the music department, the faculty, and the staff were sitting out there. And I remember my first semester of voice lessons. It was time for me to perform, and I'd been on stage before, and I could feel that nerves. And we all probably have that feel. We know what that feels like for us. And so I anticipated being nervous to that degree, but I remember the closer it got to them calling my name, and then the doorman, opened the door for me to walk out. Those nerves just started to build and build and build, and I remember thinking, "This is getting really intense." And I walked out there, and I began, I took my place, and as I was singing, though, I remember singing, but I remember more what I was feeling. I could remember standing there and my knees, we read about this, and we read to our kids, in fiction books, their knees were knocking. And I was like, is that really a thing? Like your knees actually shaking? You're so nervous. Well, it was a thing. And I was standing there and looking out at this audience of all these people and just feeling that pressure. And my knees were shaking, and I was thinking, can people see my knees shaking, and my hands were I could just barely hold them. My voice quality, I performed the song. I was prepared, so I thought, and I performed it. But I just thought, if I can just get off the stage, I never want to feel like this ever again. I just can't handle this feeling. It was horrible. And I finished, and I bowed, and I walked off the stage, and I went to the back. And once I was able to get to my dorm room, I just remember, I just broke down, started crying. And I thought, there's no way I can't do this. And it was a huge moment, because I just, sometimes when we have those defining moments in our lives, I thought I wasn't afraid. It wasn't stage. There's a difference between stage fright and nerves, just so we know. And if any of your audience has kids, there's a difference. It's usually not stage fright. And I remember thinking, there is something in the arts that is meant for me. I don't want to give up. But I either give up and go on and do something that's safe, or I say, I've got to figure this out. I have to figure out how to perform, feel the nerves, and perform through it, and to get through this. David, that began a journey of me just unraveling, how do you conquer nerves? How do you perform when you're nervous and it not change your quality? As artists or creators, we pitch ideas. We have to present some things sometimes, and the audience could be huge, or it could be that those one or two people that standing in front of that CEO or whatever. That triggers your nerves a different way. We all have to stand up and do things like that. And I began to unravel this thing. And after about 2 years, I figured out what worked for me. And in the next part of the story, it just gets better and better. But I'm going to pause. Yeah.
If you're enjoying this video, please take a moment to hit that like button, leave a comment below, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you. So now moving on just a little bit into, after college, moving to your professional career, I'd actually like to, when you graduated and moved into the professional world, what were some of your initial steps? And did you jump right into vocal coaching, or was that a service that you kind of developed over time?
Good question. It was one I developed, I kind of tiptoed into and developed over time. And when I graduated school, the main thing that kept me from going on to that music therapy master's type program was that I developed a great friendship with someone else at the school, and she and we would write songs and perform together, and it really awakened that artist performer feeling again. We won a few competitions and stuff, and so when I graduated and started my professional career, I traveled and sang. I thought, if I can just make enough to pay my rent, I'm good, pay my rent and get some food. And so I did that, David, there for a little bit, a couple years or so. I would travel, and eventually then my friend went on to some other things, and I continued that circuit, and I would travel, and I'd also teach. I found that I would often be in front of groups of kids or teenagers, and they would be saying, can you help entertain them with and teach them at the same time. So I began to see that there was this pattern of teaching youth, that they received better by if you entertain them while you're educating them. And that's what we do as artists, whatever type of art, we're entertaining, but we're also we're weaving in some sort of educational thing, a message or whatever it is. So I did that for a couple of years, and at the same time, to help those grocery bills and things, I began to teach private piano lessons and some voice. And when I started that, I really wish I had someone who could have taken me under their wing and said, Christina, this is how you do this. This is how much you should charge. This is all that. But to give you a picture, I would travel to people's homes. I charged $10 for a 30-minute lesson, and which is a steal. I think a parent should have said, Christina, you really could do more than this. But that's how I started at that rate, and going teaching private lessons, and as well as traveling around and singing, doing concerts and small concerts and things way before social media was a thing and stuff. So that's how I began. The vocal coaching really began to grow when I got married, and we ended up having 4 children within 5 years, and not quite the plan, but how it needed to be. And that was crazy as a mom. For those of you who listen and your parents, you know what it's like having kids and trying to do a career. At that time, I realized the traveling and singing thing really wasn't going to be what I ended up doing. And so I got this, there was this place called Broadway Sound in Knoxville, Tennessee, and they needed a voice teacher. They had studios upstairs, and people would go for private lessons. And I thought, let me just give this a shot. And so that's when I really pushed in to start to figure out how to really teach voice, not just perform, but teach it. And I moved on from there and continued.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Okay. And so moving on even further, just a little bit more. Now, every career is marked by a set of challenges, right? Every discipline, especially in the performing and visual arts, there are lots of different kinds of challenges. Could you share a particularly difficult challenge that you faced in your coaching career, and how it influenced your approach to vocal coaching?
Yeah, sure. In 2015, I'd been teaching private lessons roughly 14, 15 years, and had a a decently solid base. But in 2015, my family, we just picked up and we moved from Tennessee, and we moved here to the Dallas Metroplex area. At that time, I had to pretty much stop teaching. I knew I couldn't just go and plant the family, so to say, and start right into virtual coaching and all that stuff. It was just too much. So the challenge came where I had this real strong cut, like, that's not what I'm doing now. That's not going to work anymore. Sometimes we hit a place in our career, like we're hitting up against something, and something has to change. And we either adapt and figure it out, like many did at COVID. We adapt and figure it out, or we just say, that's it. That was a nice season. Let's move on to something different. And so when I came here to this area, we didn't have family, didn't know anyone. I had just absolutely no connections whatsoever. And that wasn't ever a strength back then, making connections and advertising. I had always grown what I did through referrals. And I hit up against this time when I hit the Metroplex, and I realized that it was going to require something different to be able to coach and to be viable in the industry, to be seen as an educated professional who's able to put out a high level talent, to train talent, and also to be respected in the industry. So I had a strong pivot from how I saw myself and my own abilities, and the kind of the talent that I would bring in, and how I would go get that talent, so to say. And there were times where I just really wanted to kind of give up. That's tough when you're almost rebranding what you do, and also shifting how you see yourself as an artist, as a producer, or whatever genre, whatever field you're in. And it requires that, I think, in all of our journeys in the career, that there's times when we're face to face with the reality of, just like back in the dorm room, you're either going to figure this out, or we're going to drop out of the program. I'm either going to figure out how to push into this industry here in the Metroplex, a very hub of a lot of stuff here. I'm going to figure it out and become a viable coach in this industry, or I need to do something else. And I think we hit that many times in our professional career. So that was one that I hit, and I began to kind of navigate through that, and I'm still here, still doing it, and so that's a little bit of that story.
Excellent. Okay. And so then, after two decades of vocal coaching, I'm curious if there's anything about your methodology that you've modified, that you've evolved over time, the way that you approach, dealing with the changing needs of performers over the years.
Yeah. It has. And I even look at my four kids. Now their ages 16, 17, 19, and 20, my kids. And I always thought that maybe one of them would be in a performer or in the arts. And I gave them an opportunity, and none of them did. But they're all athletes. They pushed into, and that's one of the reasons we moved here. I'm saying that to say, even over the time of, my oldest is 20, she was a high level gymnast. I have 2 soccer players, 1 hockey player, and a gymnast, and she's retired from that now. But how sports, I'm going to use sports as an example, how sports has evolved so much now, that when you look at a 10-year-old now in the sports, and all of the different trainings and modalities we can give them, and even in the artistic world, all these skill sets and stuff that they can be learning to be like cutting edge, it's so much different than it was, when my daughter was born, 20 years ago. And now it's even more different. And all that to say, as I'm coaching, it's become there's a higher demand for a higher level of excellence at a younger age. And any of your audience, if you're coaching, if you're putting education stuff out, you probably see that we're getting younger and younger talent who's coming, and the parents are part of it. They're saying we need it excellent, we need it top notch, and this is our goal. This is her goal, his goal as well. Can you help us get there? So I've had to adapt from doing those $10 30-minute lessons, and still giving excellent job. But it's a different mentality when people need, it's the tiny tweaks that put people on big stages or that seal the deal on an audition. And I began to see that and finding what that was in each singer. Every performer is different. Finding what it is, what do we need to tweak, adjust, just to fine tune just a tiny bit to get you to that next level. And so that's one of the big things, David, that's evolved over the years from just let me give you a good music class lesson, education, which there's great value to that, to it requires something different to hit Broadway, and it's fine tuning excellence. And for me to coach it, I need to understand it and know how to teach it. It's the skill sets that we sharpen ourselves. We have to sharpen our skill sets as teachers, as educators, as designers. We got to keep sharpening us so that we can sharpen what we put out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And I'd really like to hear about your the development of the practice, polish, perform, the P3 method.
Yeah.
And if you could explain the performing arts mindset, I'd love to hear your point of view on that.
Performers, it's time for you to train your mindset. I am vocal coach Christina, the performing arts mindset coach. Just because you feel nerves, it does not mean you're going to mess up, and it does not mean you have stage fright. There are 4 lessons in this first workshop and a mindset workbook. This is such a fun workbook that we will go through together. I am training your mindset in a way that has never been done before. Well, something, because of my experience I mentioned, and I'm glad you asked about that story, performing arts mindset was huge to me when I was younger. And that's when I was younger in the arts, having to figure out how to perform under pressure and be excellent. And, sometimes behind closed doors, we can be excellent and amazing techniques, amazing talent. But when the pressure is on is when that matters the most. And if we cannot convert under pressure, then there's so many things that we cannot end up doing. And so the practice, polish, perform developed because of that. As I would teach private lessons, especially as I pivoted in 2015 and on, to give students something more, something different. Into my lessons, I would put performing arts mindset coaching. That's how do I train my mind to think a certain way so that when I'm practicing, I'm preparing for the moments of pressure when I'm under nerves. Think about it. Some of y'all might know you memorize something and you think it's memorized, I got it. And then you get the nerve stirring a little bit, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, what was that? I knew this then. What is it now? What's happened is pressure's hit, little nerves, and there has to be a different way we practice to prepare for that. So I would be coaching students on different mindset techniques so that they could use in auditions and performances. And I began to realize that it was very rare that was being taught at all. And people started coming to me to help them, really great talent, and help them to convert that in high pressure moments. And so that's where practice, polish, perform came about. It's training the mindset of the performer so that under pressure they can really execute. So the P3 mindset method is one that's in a training I just recently released that's called The Road to the Stage. And because whether you're in a performance or an audition, or whether, let's say, you're going in for a job interview, you're pitching your idea to the next big, producer. There's that. I'm going to call that a performance. So that's the stage. You're arriving there. From the second you find out about it, your thought process, you're beginning to think about that moment, that upcoming performance. And how you think of it is going to greatly determine how the foundation that you stand on when nerves hit, when the pressure is on, how are you going to convert under pressure? So the P3 mindset method helps that. And it's for youth performers, or any of us, adults can use it. Do you want me to teach that in a couple minutes?
Yeah, that'd be great. Go for it.
Okay, here we go. Right. So you've all probably heard of lights, camera, action, right? They don't say that so much in the film industry anymore, but it used to be a thing. So here's how I'll blanket it. That's the P3 mindset method. It's 3 steps: lights, camera, action. When I teach it in workshops, I love to put a little rhythm to it, but we would say lights, camera, action is my automatic reaction. Lights, camera, action is my automatic reaction. Okay, so as you all are thinking of a high pressure moment, it could be for performers, something on stage, an audition, a performance. For people who don't, think of something that kind of triggers nerves. It could be a conversation that you're coming home to, and you're like, something that creates that anxiety feeling inside. You can use this. So there's 3 steps, and I'm going to put it in performer language, but y'all can convert that to whatever you're in. So let's say I have an audition coming up and I'm eating breakfast, and we have thousands of thoughts that come our way all the time. And I've heard some speakers say this before, and I like this analogy. Lots of birds fly over our heads constantly, right? Well, not constantly, but you get the idea. Birds fly over our heads. And you can't stop them from flying over your head, but you can stop them from landing on your head and building a nest in your hair. Right? Okay, so think about this. We have thousands of thoughts that come to us. We can't really help. There's ways to help that some, but in essence, they're going to come, and they're not always great. You can't really help what comes, but you can determine what you're going to do with them. So I have a high pressure moment that's coming. Step 1 is lights. When I have a thought about that high pressure moment, I'm going to stop in my mind. It's all a mindset thing. I'm going to stop in my mind and shine a spotlight on it, and just simply say, I'm going to use performing language. That was a performance thought. Okay, this happens real fast once you train yourself on it. So I'm getting ready. I'm thinking about the upcoming audition, and I'm thinking, gosh, I hope it goes well. Wait a second, lights. That was a performance thought. What we do in that, and what's happening in the moment, is you're telling your brain, brain, stop. Don't just let a negative thought kind of sit and become part of the foundation. I'm going to halt, and the brain's like, wait a second, she had a performance thought. It was a negative. What's she going to do with it? And so there's like this halt in allowing a negative thought to sit and form a foundation. Lights. Okay, so the next one is camera. If I take out a phone, I'm going to take a picture. I'm capturing a moment in time. So camera, we're going to capture the thought. And how we capture the thought, because you need to be in control of your thoughts. Don't just let it happen. Do something with them. I'm going to capture the thought by lights. That was a performance thought. Camera, we're going to label it. Was it a positive thought or a negative thought? Okay. And like I said, this happens real fast when you get it. I hope this is going to go well, because a lot of times we think I hope is a positive thought. And it's definitely positive to an extent. It's not like I'm just going to fail. It's not that, but it's also leaving room but what if it doesn't? It might not go well. So I label, I hope this goes well, as a negative thought, because it can come up higher. So I'm going to capture the thought. Like, was that positive or negative? That was negative. Now we take action, like a clapboard. We take action on the thought, and we take action by, if it's a positive thought, we repeat it. If it's a negative thought, we replace it with a positive thought, because our thoughts that create an internal feeling of, oh, I hope this is going to be okay, that begins to create a foundation in our mindsets. And when that moment of pressure, the hormones are released of cortisol and adrenaline, and it starts triggering things within, this comes back to you, because the brain remembers that she was concerned about that then, and now we're in this moment. Now I got to release more, it's a fight or flight. I got to release more of this fight or flight cortisol. The bear's chasing me kind of stress hormone. I got to release more. Or, she's had the thought, she's fine with it. So it's setting you up for success. Let me go back to the beginning and do this. So we got lights, camera, action is my automatic reaction. I'm eating breakfast. I have a big moment coming later in the day. I have a thought, gosh, I hope this goes well. Wait a second. Lights, that was a performance thought. Camera, I'm going to capture it. Was it positive or negative? That was negative. I'm going to take action on it. Negative thought, I'm going to replace it. I know this will go well. And I go on. We have thoughts constantly about an upcoming moment that we're thinking about. we have to take control of them and begin to create a firm mindset foundation. And whether it's a performance, an interview, a pitch, or it's just a tough conversation is coming, something with a business partner. If you're anticipating something in your career and it's simulated, it's triggering that little feeling, begin to take control. Wait, that was a performance thought, is negative, and then shift it. When you do that, your brain it's beginning to cement a foundation that's coming, because the moment's coming, and you're going to have something really strong to stand on that you've built. It doesn't mean you won't get nervous, but it does mean that your mindset has been moving on a positive thought road all the way up to that moment. And it will lessen how strong your nerves are. And it also gives you more composure and control in that moment that's coming. So wow, that's a little bit of it.
That's outstanding. Wow, that is amazing. It's positive affirmations to replace the negative affirmations, or whatever that would be called, right? The negative thoughts. Yeah. Fantastic. I love that process. And so that's wonderful. And I'm wondering if you could talk about people that have gone through your program, if you have one or two success stories that you could talk about.
Yeah, sure. One that I think of is her little Nora Noons, and she's on my mind today. It's her birthday today, and she's a virtual student of mine, and she began a few years ago, but she had never. Phenomenal little powerhouse voice, little blonde. She's just tiny, and she has this big voice, but she had never performed. Really performed on stage and sang. Now, she would sing at home or in grocery stores or whatever. So her mom reached out to me a couple years ago, and we started working together. I invited her to come into town to perform in a spring recital. I always do a studio spring recital, which I have one coming up here soon. And so she came, and she's in this beautiful, she's about 7 years old at the time. She's in this beautiful purple dress and just looked like a little Disney princess, and came. And so she came to perform. And I remember she came up to me, Coach Christina, and she's like, I'm so nervous. We had been talking about this, but she had never sung on stage. We had been working on it, and she stepped into that recital, and she sang Opportunity from Annie, the movie. And it was a gorgeous, beautiful moment for her that she pushed through. And that was the first time she performed. Fast forward about a year, she really wanted to be a high-level performer. And she made callbacks for the Broadway role and Frozen the musical for young Anna. And some of y'all probably know Frozen the musical, young Anna. So Broadway is touring, and she was in callbacks. So we worked through those auditions, and she landed the role of young Anna for Broadway, the North American tour, and went on that last year. And the houses, the opera houses, and the audiences that she was in front of, just huge. And I remember just going back all the way to where she began, just a bundle of nerves, with a huge talent, with the right training and mindset and opportunities through the practice, polish, perform that we worked on. She was able to land the role and tour North America for that season with Broadway and be on some huge stages. So that's a great success story, one of them. And I can share another if we had time, but I know time is important.
I would love to hear it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So just yesterday, there were auditions here in this area for racetrack, horse racing, for anthem auditions, and I'm reminded of that yesterday because I had about four of my students audition. We don't know the results yet, but one of the students who auditioned, her name's Peyton Poling. She goes by Peyton McKenna, and so she came in here to the studio about a year and a half or 2 years ago, and just a big voice, big voice, and really, really good on music theater stages. Well, she had wanted to start performing in larger venues and pursuing being a more of an artist. And so I said, why don't we start training the national anthem? That is a way to get in front of some big audiences, as y'all know, in the sports arenas and things. And around this area, there's a lot of opportunities for that. So we started training, and we filmed her audition videos and got those submitted to certain places. And she got booked at a professional sporting event. And so we were all excited. And I don't go to every event with my students, couldn't do that. But I did go to her first professional national anthem performance. And so I was there, and I got this text from her mom, and she said, she's fine with me sharing this, but she's like, Peyton is so nervous, can you please? And I was there, but I'm not like a hovering coach, I'm here. We're in chill mode, kind of working the scene and helping her with sound check. But that was a moment for her where up to that point, she knew how to handle nerves, and we would talk mindset. I always coach mindset in here, but that environment triggered her nerves. All of a sudden she looked at me, she's like, I haven't experienced this before. And she's about to go stand center court and sing in front of all these people, camera in her face, up on the Jumbotron, a big moment for Peyton. And she had that feeling. And so I began to take her through some of the other things that we do. I am the performer. I control this performance. We went through something I teach students, and this is not original. It's called box breathing. There's a way to begin to slow down that nervous response. The Navy SEALs do it by a certain way of breathing. And so she knew how to do that because I taught her that. So we went through a few of these practice, polish, perform techniques and concepts with the Road to the Stage, and went through a few of those. And she was standing backstage. She walked out on that court and she nailed the anthem. And that's a hard song to sing a cappella, hitting the high note at the end. And she did it. And I did it, as a coach. I always tell my singers, my performers, when it comes down to it, you have to make the decision. I can't, no matter how much I want you to choose to expand into the moment and to do what we practice, I can't choose it for you. Your parents can't choose it for you. Nobody, it comes down to you. It's one-on-one with you. And I said, you're going to have to make the choice. I'm the performer. I control this. And you gotta sink into that. And it's your choice, and sometimes I think just taking that full ownership on ourselves, like, it's my choice. That's a big part of owning. I'm going to own this moment. She walked out there and she killed it. And so since then, she's been booked. That was basketball. She's been booked at professional hockey events. And she just a couple weeks ago sang at professional football. And I'm believing that she's going to land this racetrack anthem. So she's just growing and expanding. But just imagine all the way back there at the first one, if she, number one, chose to, I just can't do it, and she chose not to, she wouldn't be where she is now. Number two, if she went out there, but she wasn't owning this moment and able to convert her techniques under pressure. It's a very unforgiving song, the anthem, when it's live and recorded. And if you mess it up, it's tough to get booked at other places. So she jumped the hurdles, and I'm so proud of her. Yeah.
That's awesome. Fantastic. What a great story.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? We've actually made it right to the end of the conversation, and I have one final question for you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And yeah, the final question has to do with advice for singers. So what would you offer? What pearls of wisdom would you offer for young singers or vocalists aspiring to build a career in the performing arts?
Yeah. There's several ways to look at that as far as advice to give, but I think I'll leave people with this. When I start a student in here, the mindset power phrase that I every month my studio has a mindset power phrase, and all my students are learning the same one, and we're talking. But the very first one I give everyone is, and I've done this for 20 years, my voice is a one-of-a-kind instrument. It's very important for performers, for singers to understand that I am a unique instrument. I don't have to sound like anyone else. I have to be the best version of myself. Let me go to work to sharpen the skills and the skill sets that I need. Some need more sharpening with, pitch clarity. Some have perfect or close to perfect pitch. It's not an issue. They need more sharpening with the mindset or certain breathing techniques. So everyone's unique. Every artist has their strengths and weaknesses. And so as you're pursuing the professional, or just I want to go to my school and land the lead role, as you're pursuing those things, realize, say, I don't have to be anyone else. I have to be the best version of me that I can be. And let me take what are my skill sets. We need to train voice. We need to, if you're in the arts and you're in theater, in art, you need to train voice. You need to train dance. You need to train acting. There's different skill sets. So number one, I'm an original, and I'm going to be the best that I can be. And that helps you when you're comparing yourself to everyone else's talent. And number two, what are the skill sets that you need for where you're going? You don't need to overstudy guitar if you're in music theater. If you're a singer songwriter, you need to be honing in on an instrument that you can work your voice and songwriting with. If you're an actor, we need to sharpen our acting skills. Is it film acting? Is it theater acting? All those are different modalities, and I would assume that transitions to the artistic world as well. What are you pushing into? And let's get trained and be as excellent as we can in that. And I've got to be the best version of me that I can be. As long as I don't give up, I will become better every day. And it just might land me in that role that I want to be in.
Outstanding. That's fantastic advice. And so once again, thank you for being here. I value your time, and I appreciate you being the first vocalist on my show.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. Thank you so much for having me.